Welcome to the Performance Health Podcast. My name is Tim Caron. We got Scott Leech on the call today, head strength coach at University of Rhode Island. We did this podcast a long time ago, so I'm sure he's going to be very fun and surprised to see that we finally came out with this. So, great conversation. Talked a lot about programming, how he approaches some really complex issues in terms of organizing your training and then really structuring things like non-contact, contact stuff, all great stuff. I mean, amazing conversation. If you like what you're hearing, head over to strength&conditioningcoach.com. I got a bunch of different resources. I got books, Strength Deficit, How to Become a Strength Coach, and then my latest book, Training Sports Teams. Amazing resource. Got another ebook in there called actually Strength Coach Longevity Index. So if you're a strength coach, you're going to get in the second half of your career, 45 to 65, must-have resource. I also have our collective membership. This is a premium membership that gets you access to calls each week, discussion groups, and books each month. Cannot talk enough about how collective membership is going to make you into the coach you always dreamed of. And then lastly, I have a couple courses. I have a strength deficit course, I have a foundations course, and then I have an in-person course, Guilford, Connecticut, June 27th, June 28th, biomechanics. All things biomechanics. You're going to set up not only how to pick the right exercises, but how to execute on the exercises. 2-day course, very intensive. It's going to get you step 1 of step 5 to write in the most comprehensive programs in all strength and conditioning. June 27th, June 28th, Guilford, Connecticut. Register at strengthtc.com. All right, let's talk to Coach Leach.
All right, everybody. We got Coach Scott Leech, head strength conditioning coach, University of Rhode Island, the Rams. Appreciate you taking the time. Do you like giving a little background on yourself, or do you hate that aspect of podcasting?
I don't care either way. At this point, I've got the shtick down that I'm a typical Rhode Islander, born and raised from here. So I say all Rhode Islanders are undersized overachievers because no one's ever heard of our state. And we put that chip on our shoulder and carry it around with us and try and do big things and put the state on the map a little bit. I think you can relate being a Western Mass guy. Western Mass has this similar vibe of putting some respect on Western Massachusetts.
Yeah, I'm originally from Northern Connecticut, which is
basically
oftentimes confused with Western Mass.
I don't want to start a rivalry between Northern Connecticut and Western Mass.
Oh, man. Western Mass. But I did go to Westfield State College and Springfield College. But yeah, did you play in the Connecticut Rhode Island All-Star game?
I did play.
Did you win? Oh, there.
Don't get me in trouble, but I stole the helmet from the game itself.
Oh, man. Wow. Did you win?
No, we got crushed.
Yeah, that's classic Connecticut, just dominating Rhode Island. Oh, we only hang our hat on, man. It's the only thing we got.
I think it was like 7-14 at halftime. We're like, this is the year, we'll do it. And it did snowball themselves.
Just the Connecticut juggernaut. Love it. I didn't make the Connecticut Rhode Island All-Star game. I like to think it was politics.
There's a lot of politics. That's what it is. Yeah.
All my buddies are high school strength coach or high school football coaches now.
I saw your tape. But
I don't think it was politics. I didn't think it was that good. Either or. That's their opinion. Those who don't know, I'm a massive advocate and lobbyist to get myself in the Town of Enfield Sports Hall of Fame. Not in there. Very much the powers that be are holding you back.
I sympathize with you. I feel like I should be in the Lincoln High School Hall of Fame. I cannot write my own entry, so I need somebody else to write it for me. I'm waiting for that day to happen.
I just do it for my friends, and I vote for myself, and I put their email and their address and everything out there. And I'm not ashamed to admit that, because if they're going to play the political game with me, I'll play the political game right back.
The lesson learned
multiple times. Yeah.
Burner accounts.
Yeah. And I did some consulting with my high school, and that was like the first thing I wanted to address was the fact that I'm not in the Hall of Fame. And look, you didn't even play in the Connecticut Rhode Island All-Star game. How good were you?
Oh, man.
Fair enough. All right. So the great intro, by the way. Thank you for that. All right. We got program design. This is entire season dedicated to the pen to paper before we hit the floor, before we start coaching. This is what I want to think about from what is the vision and how does it come to be? So my first question for you is, how would you define your philosophy in programming?
Just put everything up on a whiteboard, and then you take a dart and you just throw it, and whatever sticks, that's what we're doing that day.
Yep.
It's so much. I got some flack on social media today. I said, strength training is simple, right? It's not complicated to get people stronger, but it's not easy because there's so many other factors to juggle and balance these days. And it gets even harder in college football now with the amount of kids that are in and out every year. Back in the day, it was a lot easier when you knew you had somebody for at least 4 years, maybe 5 years, and you could have a nice developmental plan and put things together. And now it's not the case anymore. So my programming has really come down to assessing where these kids are at when they're coming in, because even the high school kids that you bring in nowadays are a lot different than what you used to bring in, because the level of training has improved at the high school level. But we're getting a ton of transfers that come in, and they come in from all different levels, either FBS down to FCS or Division II to FCS. And then it could be lateral moves too, and the programs are very different. So assessing where everyone's at, and then looking at what, from a standard standpoint, do we think they need in order to move up a level? Do you want me to get into that a little bit in terms of what we're looking at for numbers and standards?
But my first question off of that would be, has your assessments changed since the format of, what is the percentage overhaul of your roster every year now?
We had 22 kids out, and I think at least 14 or 15 transfers, and then the rest got filled in with freshmen. So it's a good, at least probably like 25% of your roster, if not more. Granted, we just won a conference championship, so nobody wants to leave when you win. Right. When you're losing, it's probably even higher than that.
Yeah, so for the folks out there who are listening to this and maybe don't work in the team sector or didn't work in the team sector in the 2000s all the way through the 2010s before transfer portal and NIL, you're looking at about 15 to 20 kids graduating out of your program every year. So it's about a 15 to 20% overhaul. But would it be safe to say about a 35 to 40% overhaul of every roster every year in most college programs?
I would say so.
You have effectively 40 new kids every year, and you have 60 remaining kids. What would be the difference in assessments that you would do based off of that? Or do you keep that same standard of assessment and just adjust based off of the fact that most of these kids have never seen you or met you before?
Yeah. So it's one of those things, you don't have to slow cook as much because they are coming in with a little bit of a training background from somewhere else now. So you don't have that expectation or need. Now, granted, there are some kids that come in that still can't lift, and it's like, what happened? Where you been? So that's one assessment, is can you train? But a lot of kids have come in and know how to train. I think that's a big thing now. So once you know how to train, okay, now let's address the actual needs that you need, and let's hammer those. And the big thing being, like, it's a shorter lifespan. For us, it's if you're not playing special teams by the end of you'll get maybe a redshirt year, but then after that second season, if you're not contributing in some way, shape, or form, you as a player are probably looking for an opportunity to play somewhere else, or okay, is this guy going to come along, or do we go get somebody who can plug and play right away? We get a ton of one-year deal guys, so guys that are on their grad year, just one and done, want an opportunity to shine. You get a ton of guys that have maybe 2 years left. If you're not contributing by halfway through your career and you're not developmentally on the field playing, you might want to find somewhere else, or we're going to go find somebody who is more ready to go than you right now.
You mentioned slow cook, and really you could break it down to, I guess the more technical term would be long-term athletic development.
Yep.
How are you determining someone knows how to train when they walk through the door?
All of our freshmen, regardless of where they've been or what they come through, we'll put them through the typical quote unquote freshman program. We'll have certain numbers. If you can goblet squat the 150-pound dumbbell for a set of 20, I'm not going to bust your balls anymore and make you keep goblet squatting. You'll graduate to front squat and whatnot. But that's probably the only time in that first semester that they're on campus, they'll be on what you would consider a really regressed developmental model. And honestly, it's just so they can adjust to the workload of college football itself more than anything. Some of the kids can handle the weight room stuff, and that's fine, but they can't handle the weight room stuff and the jumping workload that comes with college football practice. So it's looking at that, and we've had kids that come in and you're like, I'm going to try and speed you up, but at the same time, I'm also going to keep you on this developmental program just for a little bit longer, even though you're probably ready for something a little bit more advanced. The other thing we do too is by the end of the semester, we'll get some either 3 or 5 RM numbers on them, and we'll estimate some 1 RMs. Bench press, depending on who they are, probably 1 rep maximum there. But at that point, I'll have jump numbers, sprint numbers, a body fat percentage, and then squat and bench numbers on them. And I know for our level at the FCS, positionally, and then also based on body weight, because we're going to use relative strength instead of just absolute strength numbers, we'll know each position and each weight of, okay, here's where you stack up right now. And are you strength deficient, or do you have a good strength base right now for your position and all that? Whatever we determine is good. And can we focus on other things from there?
It's interesting you mentioned that the 150-pound goblet squat for 20. And like, I think what's so interesting about it to me, and I talked a lot about this with Coach Gilfeder, Fordham, and progressing people through the ranks and giving some sort of opportunity for them to, it's pretty simple to go to that player and saying, you've been training and we're going to move you up versus the other kid who did not train or did not do anything the summer before, and give some sort of, you earn this right to go into a higher level programming. I remember when I was working at Georgia Tech, my responsibility was like the freshman introductory coach. Like I was there like orientation guy. You go back to Springfield College and like you have to wear your beanies kind of thing. And there's some really good high school strength conditioning programs down in Georgia. And there was one in Flowery Branch, which is adjacent to the Atlanta Falcons practice facility. And the head coach there was a world-renowned weightlifting coach. And when you get a kid like that who coming from that program, like he's probably going to be pretty good at some things. But I remember this one kid, his name's Daniel Drummond. We always open up with 4 sets of 5 hand clean. That was like our first progression. He smoked 140 kilos for 5. And I remember talking to my boss, Siano. I was like, I just don't think we need to be in the freshman program with this kid. He could literally be at the main racks with the sophomores and juniors. And he's now keep him in there and be good for the other guys to follow suit and create some sort of trickle down effect. And it was that like moment of, okay, there's a clear need to move this guy into a more advanced programming or fast track it. But then there was another thing of the symbolic gesture of, if that guy's cleaning 140 kilos, what's going to be the trickle down effect to that freshman who didn't come through a high school program and wasn't a developed? So it was more of a like symbolism of, okay, we want you to set the precedent for this entire class. And like, it was a very, from a binary, like, yes, this kid is advanced, let's move him over to the bigger racks, versus the other aspect of that freshman who didn't have as much of a developmental age, knowing what the standard now is. And sure enough, those kids translated, is all subjective, but you felt like those kids translated better to the real programming faster because of those like little decisions. And whether it was Siano's wisdom or Siano's like just maybe being rigid and like, nah, we don't move freshmen up. Who knows what the real genius of all that was, but it worked out really well. And I would be interested to see from a like crossover design of, we're going to take kids who can hit these benchmark numbers and move them over to the varsity racks, what that means for everyone else left behind with me in the introductory program of just motherfucking them for not picking up the bar correctly or not going through the warm-up sets and recording their weights, like all these like details where I'm stopping them and just being an asshole for assholes purposes so we can get them conditioned for the next 4 years. What would have been the difference? But we'll never know. But it was like it's never as simple or as black and white as you can goblet squat 120 or 20 reps at 150 pounds, like you're a varsity guy now. It's just not that like A to B. There's always exceptions of that. But the slow cooking, and then the other part too, it's is it going to make that much tangible of a difference to get the kid in a more advanced program right away? And you think in your head, but I guess that's the point of this idea of the programming aspect. When we're getting more individualized, more personalized, more benchmark oriented, we're generally thinking about, we're trying to write a more appropriate program for that kid so he can develop at the rate that he needs to develop based off what we need him on the field. But getting into that, in terms of the structure of your program, let's say that you have a generic Excel sheet that you use and you start off with that and it's got A1, A2, B1, B2 kind of thing. What does a general like week without any interference from coaches or scheduling look like for you?
So it's a dream week. Perfect world. Are we talking maybe like an off season or just?
Yeah, let's go off season.
I try to, as best we can, follow a high-low approach to training. And typically what that ends up being is more of an upper-lower split. Now, I'm not afraid to mix some things on days if needed, as long as the vibe is low and the vibe is high, then we're good. And I sound a little like corny, but like a low day should feel like a low day. You can still bench hard, you can still get a good pump, but it shouldn't be as demanding and taxing. And especially like right now in the summer, we try and follow that as much as we can. And the guys can notice it. Like they leave on a Monday, and Monday's a low day for us, and they're feeling good, they're buzzing around, and then they come in on Tuesday, and it's a high day. And by the time they get done with that, they're like, yeah, you got me today. And I'm like, good, we're on track. That's what we're doing. I used to be a 3 high, 2 low guy. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday be high days, Tuesday, Thursday be low. I think I've shifted gears, and now I'm at a 2 and 2. So now it's early in the week. I think that Monday, as much as I wanted that to be a high day, I don't know. I feel better when it's a low day. You give them a chance to work themselves into the week, and then Tuesday you can get after it. And then depending on the schedule, we'll go right into another low day, high day, and then Friday will be a field day for us. Or we'll make that middle day of the week be an off day or a rest day or a recovery day. and just give us an extra there. If we really feel like, hey, we need to give them 2 before that next high day on Friday, let's give them an extra rest day in the middle. So it really does flex, and I kind of like the flexibility schedule. The kids don't like it because they like structure and order, and they like knowing what's coming for the week ahead. But it gives me a little bit of wiggle room there in the programming and being like, okay, like we overshot something, or I didn't expect 7-on-7 to get dragged out. I know perfect world, we don't have those things, but that model works out pretty well for me and what we're doing. And it still gives me room for training wise if somebody has to miss a day, or if we're making modifications and things like that. I always get nervous when we're doing like maybe a total lower upper and you're missing like the big thing of the week. It's you missed your shot there. But if we have 2 high days and 2 low days, you got an opportunity to make it up later in the week. So
now it seems to me that you've adopted the high-low model because it gives you more flexibility. In regards to the things that you're anticipating with flexibility, so you're writing your perfect program, the thing that's going to cure cancer, and when you're finalizing,
we have enough growth hormone, we might create it. But
yeah, no doubt. Yeah, fair enough. So either way, we're creating some sort of
monsters.
Yeah,
Monsters are coming out.
Hormesis is playing out in its total level. But with all that being said, is you're now pen and paper writing out there with that flexibility, where are the things that this is the thing I'm going to be malleable on, and these are the things I'm going to have to be rigid on?
Yeah, so it's funny. Sometimes when I get in a training rut, I just put up 2 things on the board. I put up my wants, I put up my needs, right? So it sounds like you're asking me, what are your needs in a program? What do you need to have in there? So our off-season program, we got to have a max speed day. We got to touch high speed numbers, and ideally they got to be above 90% of their speed. I actually had this conversation with the kids last week because we run lasers, and that's our day where we have GPS units for 24 of the guys too, but we'll run the lasers, and that's our opportunity to get up to full speed and really challenge ourselves and try and hit that ceiling and see what it is. And I had a handful of guys, I'm a little tight today. I don't know. I don't want to push it. I'm nervous about what happens. So you explain to them, like, if you don't touch it, you don't touch the ice, like at some point you're going to be out there and you're going to do it, and you haven't been training for it. You haven't been prepared for it. So that lesson actually worked out really well. We had some really good numbers yesterday, but that's a non-negotiable for me. We got to get that in. We got to get some sort of vertical jump metric on a high day. Shout out Hawkins if they're on here listening. Let's get our plates redone. We're trying to get our plates redone with them.
Hawkins.
That'd be great. Come on. Put a ram right on the thing. We're good to go. Yeah. But I'm an old school guy. Like, we got the not Vertex. Oh, that's too old school. We got the jump mats. We've done plyo mats as well. I like plyo mat. I think that's a good one there. And we're pen and paper. So we got the interns sitting there writing them down, recording them, and we're punching them back in on Excel later. A little manual labor with that. And then I think regardless of wherever level you're at, you probably just need some high quality strength work. It's one of those things, I think, as you get older, you can flex around with what you do on the second day of the week, right? So your younger guys might need a little bit of hypertrophy on the back end, right? So let's make sure we get one good quality strength day in. Let's get one quality, maybe a higher volume day. But my older guys don't need the volume day anymore. They can probably shift to their second day of the week being a little bit more speed and power focused instead. Or maybe it's your skill guys. They just need a little bit more reactivity. So their second high day of the week is going to be more reactive instead of the hypertrophy day. Now, if it's my 155-pound receiver who's 18 years old and needs to go eat, then yeah, he's going to get one strength day and he's going to get a hypertrophy day. It really comes down at that point to what level they're at, what they need, and then programming-wise, we'll flex around there.
So you talked about hitting max velocity, 90% threshold, hitting a max effort jump. Why are those 2 things so important?
I think they're, one, easy to do. So there's no excuse not to do them in your program in some way, shape, or form. Competition factor is, we tell our kids all the time, if you want to prove that you're better than somebody else, football is completely different. So I always say, okay, you know what? Because there are kids that love to compete on this stuff and then they don't play, but they love to brag about how they have the best vertical jump on the team, or they have the best jump numbers, sprint numbers, whatever it may be. But I still want my best player to compete at these things too and take pride at these things. So there's a competition factor involved there. And again, it's the max effort. Apply everything you've got into an activity in your life a couple times. And then when we're done for the day, you're done for the day. But for right now, for this hour and a half, I want you to learn how to apply yourself maximally. Not everyone is going to want to get under a barbell and do that. And the risk reward isn't there, but there's very, in my opinion, little risk to max effort sprinting and max effort jumping. So let's do those things.
Now, does that have an influence on all the other strength things that or strength or other biomotor stuff that you're trying to develop, whether it's hypertrophy or capacity or force. When you're looking at, I'm going to hit these maximal efforts between sprinting and jumping, what is the cascade effect going into the strength development, the capacity development? How do you either organize a exercise selection or your variable selection based off of hitting those really big high level efforts?
So I think if I hear you correctly, is there are times where we want to see those numbers climbing, right? And if our programming is on point and guys are recovering in between sessions and things like that, from week to week, hopefully we see a climb in that. Now, there may be a drop off, and that's the indicator that, hey, we probably need to deload. And if I've done it, I can see the cliff before the cliff hits and we deload on time. But there are other times of the year where you just have to eat it and understand, hey, it is what it is. Like, I'm going to try and really drive some strength adaptations right now. We might lose a little bit off of our speed numbers and sprint numbers. We're still going to do them because I think there's value in that. But don't be upset when you see those things go down. And the biggest thing is we take pride in these numbers and these metrics, but we don't need to obsess about them. As long as they're moving, and then it's getting people to zoom out and say, hey, where were you a year ago? Are your numbers climbing compared to where you were a year ago? Then you're fine. Don't worry about the dip right now because it did the same thing last year. It took a little bit of a dip, you adjusted, and you climbed out of it. It's being at peace, knowing that, okay, hey, yeah, I don't expect their jump numbers to come back. First week of the summer, first 2 weeks of summer, and we're building up some volume again after taking a good time off. Yeah, I don't expect some great numbers right now. But as we get out of that hole, weeks 3, weeks 4, weeks 5 of the summer, yeah, I expect to see some things better. And if we timed it up right, we can take 4th of July off. We can use that to recover and then build it back up again. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely does. So shifting gears here a little bit. This December, you're looking at the 2026 annual chart. What vector are you going? Are you going from individual training sessions up to the annual plan, or are you going from the annual plan down to the individual training session?
When I'm designing it and laying it out,
yeah,
I start with the big picture. I look at the calendar and say, all right, where are my windows? How many weeks are those windows? And sadly, they're getting shorter and shorter. We were talking about it this year. My winter off season used to be a nice 9 weeks long. You could really get some work done. And at this point, it's 6 weeks if I'm lucky, because we've had to move spring practice up so much because we want to get spring practice done before the spring portal opens so the coaches can go on the road and go recruiting. So now the expectation is, hey, you had 9 weeks. You used to have 9 weeks to get them ready for spring practice. Spring practice isn't going to change. You've now got 6 weeks to get them ready. So by the time you get done with 6 weeks, you feel like you're just hitting a groove and a stride. This summer, we have 8-week window here with an optional week on the front end, optional week on the back end. So 8 to 10 weeks, depending on if the kids stay for those. But that feels like a lot more time to get them ready and get them prepared. So I'm looking at those chunks of windows. I'm looking at spring ball as kind of its own window there. Postseason has its own window there. So I guess it's those. You start with the big plan. You map out your big phases, your big time periods of the year, and then go back through and say, okay, I have in-season. How do I want to break this in-season period up? I have spring ball. How do I want to break? Do I want to do it? It's 5 weeks. Do I want to do 3 and 2? What I've been doing a lot more these days is programming 1 week at a time and saying, okay, I have an overall 5-week plan here. And then week to week, I'll make my adjustment. If I'm ready for, hey, we can push them for 1 more week. Let's try and do that. Or, hey, it's time to switch them. So I have the rough skeleton there. Shorter windows like that 5-week window or 6-week off season, I can probably plan that whole 6 weeks out and then adjust on the fly. In season, I'm still going to break that up into chunks. That's just too long of a period of time to try and do that whole thing week by week.
Yeah. It makes me think, and I wonder from a compliance standpoint, does football go more towards basketball model of just having, instead of player-led practices, 2 practices a week throughout the entire winter and spring before the spring portal, as opposed to a 4 to 5 week window for spring ball? You basically just start practicing January, and we're going to practice Tuesday, Thursday, and left Monday, Wednesday, Friday, all throughout the winter, spring. I definitely would put a hindrance on pads and other stuff, but getting the assistants out there and the coordinators out there and essentially just doing practice.
It's funny. They've started to loosen the rules a little bit and allowed for more individual time in the summer. and things like that. So our coaches have been a little bit more involved than they've ever been. And then we still have player-led 7-on-7s twice a week as well. But having a great conversation with them today of saying, hey, we're doing so much now. And this is me, and knock on wood, this is the first time where we've installed so much so early that by the time we get to camp, we don't have to accelerate like we've done in the past and try and put it all in. So they're already in their head. Yeah, we're actually like really ahead of schedule. We don't need the walkthrough in the afternoon. We don't need to get them back outside on the turf doing a walkthrough. We can recover. We can just watch film. We can just let them go back to their room and maybe rest. So I'm optimistic because, everyone's, oh, the coaches are getting more involved. This is the worst thing ever. They need time to develop. Holistically, this might end up being a good thing for us because now we don't have to overwhelm the kids in August. I see it with an open set of eyes. And as long as you're making the adjustments that you need to make on your end and working together with coaches, then you're going to be fine.
Yeah, it's amazing the evolution of everything and these gestures, so to speak, of eliminating the spring game or not having as much public eyes on spring practice for guys trying to poach your guys. Like, you could look at that as a problem. You could look at it as all sorts of dynamics of change is hard. But then as a strength coach or as a physical development specialist, you got to look at it as windows of opportunity. Can you have that conversation of, can we just run spring ball all throughout the calendar year and not eat into these really big moments of developing physical qualities? And another part too is the optimist to me. If I can condition the guys to go from January to April, we're going to lift 3 days a week and practice 2 days a week. And then from August to September, we're going to practice 5 days a week and lift 2 days a week. And then when we get back to September to November, we're going to go to practicing, which is probably 4 days a week, three of them being challenging hard days, and then lifting 3 days a week. And they're more conditioned to that schedule in January, as opposed to after getting through spring or preseason camp, they're getting momentum back into lifting again is challenging. And then, hey, we got to get 2 lifts a week. And it's like pulling teeth. And that Thursday lift is usually a shit show. It's how I can do it after practice. I don't want to eat into my legs. I'm just so dead. Like, they're just more in that spirit of, it's a constant process. We're just going to titrate up and down the time in the weight room based off of what we're doing on the field. But we're always lifting and practicing. Maybe.
I think the consistency for the long haul is probably a better thing where you just adjust a little bit up and down and try and get a little bit better or make some changes as you go. The downside of that is there is going to be so much more monotony that you're going to have to fight through that. You're going to have to fight the kids through that. I think that's one of the fun things about college football still is that there's times of the year and they create these really powerful memories and moments. And we should still lean into that. Like summer training is still summer training. It's hard. I keep this picture. This is our 1985 championship team. I found this in a yearbook. I don't know if we can get that on. A group of guys right there.
Yeah.
Man, just a bunch of burly dudes when they got out of work back in the 80s. And they went in the dungeon. That's not our weight room that we have now, not the nice one, but like a little janitor's closet. They're banging weights and getting after it. And that's what summer training is. So there's part of that vibe of, hey, there's times of the year like that. I'm not the biggest fan of mat drills. I think there's a lot of dumb things there. But it creates a memory and a moment and a bond. And those are the things you remember when you graduate. So I get it if you want to do it. I'm here for it. Just do it in a smart way that doesn't get kids hurt. I'm fine with that too. Yeah. But there's a little bit of that. I always look at mat drills as that's my conditioning block. That's my GPP conditioning block. I don't have to worry about developing capacity because it's already taken care of in that 2-week period. And here's the thing that it's like, if you're a strength coach who's like more of I'm the expert in my domain and developing all physical quality and I don't resonate with mat drills, like, no one's sitting here, no strength coach out there in the world is saying this is a good thing and this is net positive, but there are benefits to not having to worry about developing like actual work capacity. Times that you can really develop robust force and velocity in like January, February. I don't have to worry about March because let's start taking it. And the ironic part is the better shape I get them, the harder that becomes. So if they're absolutely in killer shape going into those mat drills, they're just going to elongate it. They're just going to push it out for another 30, 45 minutes because you can't break them as easily. Versus they're throwing up in the first 5 minutes. There's so many life lessons in there. There's so many things you can still get. These kids don't get challenged the way they used to because as soon as you challenge them, they fold. It's still, it's a last chance to say, hey, you know what? you're going to have to go through some hard things in your life. This is one of them. There's going to be times where you have to do things you don't want to do. You don't enjoy it. Someone's making you do it. Suck it up and give it your best anyways. Because when you go to your job, that's what's going to happen. There's going to be dirty work and somebody's going to need to do it. And I think when you say, oh, I'm a performance specialist, we're going to high-low model them and we're on our low days, we're going to do our tempo runs. There's nothing that in my opinion, challenges that thing other than the monotony of, hey, you're going to do 22 tempos today and I want them to be on time and perfect. Not everyone's built like that. I think the people that are built like that are the ones programming that. So there's some value to it still.
All right. So now let's get into a debrief, right? So break down how you're evaluating. Let's start off with each training day. How do you describe whether it's, if you use a Tim Gabbett 1 to 4 good versus bad day, like 4 being good, 1 being bad, you just take an aggregate of it. But every single training session, how are you and your staff evaluating if that was a good or bad session?
Yeah, I think you sit down, get a drink of water, and if you're exhausted, it was probably a good training session. Hopefully, right? You were coaching hard, you're getting after it.
Yeah.
But we sit down beforehand and we talk about the session. Not just obviously the exercises and the technique and what we're looking for, but also what are we trying to achieve today? We're coming off a tough conditioning day. Mindset wise, we want to make sure we're on these guys and getting after it and not letting them drag yesterday's fatigue into today as much as they are fatigued. Let's bring it. So we'll ask ourselves, like, did whatever our goal and our objective for the feeling of the day, did we achieve that? Did we get that done? Did that go wrong? And then the exercises itself, was the technique there? Is there something technique-wise we need to improve? And then percentage-wise, were we on point with that? Do we feel like we were a little off? Especially looking at maybe the previous week and thinking about where we want to get to if we know, hey, we have a deload in at least 1 or 2 more weeks. What are we thinking there? Do we think we're on pace for that? Do we think we need to adjust? Do we think the volume's starting to creep up on certain exercises? I'm a guy, like, I'll run 10 weeks of the same accessory exercises as long as we're still have enough dumbbells to handle that. I put that on my assistants. Like, do you think it's time to switch? If you think it's time to do something new, let me know. If not, we're going to keep ripping dumbbell rows and RDLs. I don't think there's anything broken with those. And then just looking across the board of holistically, what maybe from an optics or logistics standpoint, what do we need to do differently next time? What did we not set up maybe during a transition that we should have? And then once we get the GPS stuff back, we'll look at that too. Field work is always that one where it's like, did we overshoot it? Did we undershoot it? Especially because I like to do a lot of the games and the contact prep and things that aren't necessarily like pre-planned tempos and some other conditioning you can track out. You can draw out the yardage and know exactly how many yards you want to hit that day and get pretty close. It gets a little harder when you have a lot of these open field drills and things like that. We'll do a little after action and look at that stuff and be like, did we overshoot it? Did we undershoot it? Where can we do better next time?
Now, on the same motif of that question, how do you evaluate the effectiveness of the entire offseason?
Oh, I think first and foremost is did we get them to the finish line of that phase as healthy as possible? Because I think if you're getting there and half the team's banged up, then it wasn't worth it. As great as the adaptations may be for the guys who did survive, I'm not at a level where I can do that. And I'm hearing I used to use as a recruiting pitch, like the FBS kids that come down. I'm like, hey, I won't beat the crap out of you every offseason. I'll make sure you get there healthy. And they're like, I'll be healthy for the season? Yeah, I can. I'm hearing less and less of that. So that's a good thing that the FBS programs are adjusting a little bit. But that's first and foremost, can we get you healthy? Can we make sure you're ready to practice and compete every day and you're pretty robust and you can handle the workload that's coming? That's another big one too, is I try and educate these kids like, yeah, I'm going to make you healthy, but that doesn't mean I'm going to wrap you in bubble wrap. That means I'm going to train you hard so that you can handle whatever these coaches throw at you. At that point, it's healthy. And then are we trending in the right direction with all of our metrics that we track? Like I said, the jump, sprint, bench, squat, body fat number is a big one too. I always want to try and improve that number if we can. And then at that point, it's did we do the best we can with the hand we were dealt? Again, the logistics of dealing with sport coaches and things like that, you may not get the schedule that you want, but did you optimize it, make it the best you could? And again, that's one of the reasons why I switched from the 3 high day down to a 2 high day. It's just because I kept banging my head on saying, I want to get 3 high days in. And it just doesn't work with what we're trying to do outside of strength and conditioning. So make your adjustment. And I have a feeling it's too early. Maybe I'm going to jinx myself, but we're having a really good summer so far. So I bet by the time we get to the finish line of this thing, we're going to be in a great spot. our numbers are going to be in a good place, and they're going to be ready to practice every day.
I got a big question I'm going to finish with here, but on the note of going from 3 to 2 high days, would you ever go back to a 3 high days?
If I know how much they're going to do on the field and I can limit that, yeah, I could.
And what would be the reason to do that?
I think if you have maybe some younger guys too, that they're not expected to play right now, they're a little bit less workload, and you can push them a little bit harder. You can squeeze a little more adaptation out of them as long as they can handle it. I think that's the biggest thing. So that's the catch-22. The kid that needs the extra day may not be ready to handle the extra day of training. Now, the more advanced, the older guy who knows how to push himself on a high day and knows how to work through a nice, easy low day, he's probably more physically ready for it, but he logistically may not need that. So it's a catch-22. The kid that needs it the most may not be the kid that's ready for it. If I thought the situation was right and I had the time and I knew what they were doing off the field, I would consider going back to a 5-day with 3 high days.
How long have you been at URI?
Got here as an assistant in 2020. And got promoted to head in 21, associate AD in 23.
So this is your 5th year being the head strength coach.
Yep.
You're in that like danger zone of having enough momentum and inertia to create like a URI way and never changing. And I've talked a lot about this with strength coaches all around the country, is when you cross that 3 to 4 year mark, you start to develop your methodology, your system, your way. And a lot of part, like, it's for efficiency, it's for organization, it's for clarity to everybody. Like, they know, like, Coach Leach's program in summer is going to be focusing on this. So like the groundskeeper setting up the grass, so he's going to do a lot of change direction stuff. I need to get out there early. The administration, like, hey, we want to spotlight one of our longest, most tenured people here, and we'll do some donor stuff, some booster stuff, and the coaches know, and you start to get in this like way of doing things. What becomes challenging is when you start to become associated with that way of doing things, is creating this like philosophy that this is the only way to do it, and therefore it becomes harder and harder to change. And as you described so far, a ton is how much has changed in the past 4 years. And to say that we have this like rigid structure, like Brian Hess and I have had this conversation where he's stopped doing Olympic lifts at UNC. And I remember having this, we went through a whole like biomechanics course with all the staff down there last year. And yeah, I still champion doing Olympic lifts, and I'm not trying to get into the conversation of whether it's good or bad, but I don't do it with everybody. I just do it in a situational independent thing, but I don't abandon the whole notion of doing Olympic lifts entirely, because that's just the way I do it now. And I'm like, I think you should be really cognizant of creating these mental blocks that Olympic lifts are therefore no longer effective because we stopped doing them 2 years ago. You should always reevaluate at the beginning of every off season. What is the best tool? What are the best methods? What's the best organization to get into that direction? So I guess my question off of that, sorry, it's a long preamble,
okay,
is how do you effectively safeguard yourself from becoming static in your programming decisions and always evaluating every single year where the highest needs for each one of my players and teams?
Yeah, I would say that my programming and my philosophy is rigid. And when I say rigid, the rigidity is I'm going to put the best program forward, right? So it's whatever it may be. And I think sometimes you get complacent in the workplace, not only when the work is not satisfying anymore, but also when life takes over and you have a lot of other things that you care about and worry about. And I felt the pull of that very early. My son was born 2 years ago, coming up on 2 years. And I felt that, okay, I'm going to put my program, I'm going to go on paternity leave, I'm going to get my assistants locked and loaded. I could very easily recycle this thing, keep it rock and roll. It's a good program. It works. It's solid. But there's that calling of, hey, I want to be a great strength coach. And what do great strength coaches do? They constantly evaluate. They constantly try and find new things, constantly find ways to get better. And that's the biggest thing is, are you putting the best program together? And you don't know until you try new things. You don't know until you retest some things. I'm a no Olympic lifting guy, other than maybe some jerks and push jerks and split jerks. But every once in a while, my assistants will convince me to throw them back in for a phase. Hey, take the advanced guys and just throw some hang snatches in there. Let's do that instead of doing another round of trap bar snap downs or something like that. I'm not afraid to do those things. I think I have a little bit of security at the FCS level that I can get away with trying some new things out with my program. I think I've seen that at the higher level. I've interned at the SEC, and it was, if this program goes wrong, we're out of here. So you can't afford to test things out and try things out. And unfortunately, maybe that's why I don't want to go to that level, is because I want to have the creative freedom to try and work some new things or put new drills in. The things that I do on the field with the scores and stops games and the contact prep stuff, I'm not always perfect on those. Sometimes it's a good drill. Sometimes it doesn't work out that great. And that's okay. But I'm constantly evaluating and making our program better and better. And like I said, I think this has been our best summer yet, because we refuse to be happy with what we've done before. Same thing we expect our kids. We want our kids to get better year to year. We want our philosophies on offense and defense to get better year to year. And we want our weight room to get better too. I guess that the other part is me as an AD is, how do I keep improving the quality of our program as a whole? Keep finding more fundraising, keep finding more ways to get the equipment that we need, keep improving the facility itself, whether it's we just got a new paint job, we got some branding stuff done, we're going to get a floor done eventually. Like, the constant push is what keeps you going in this field. So I have that. And if you've lost that, it's a hard thing to do. You got to find a way to get that back.
I always say, show me your weight room, I can tell your philosophy. And if I see like a bunch of lead FTS racks and safety squat or safety bars and model lifts all over the place, like, all right, you're going to be a squat bench dead guy. It just is what it is. And then now, like, we see college weight rooms have a lot of resources at their disposal, and they might adhere to more of a powerlifting philosophy, but they still get bumper plates. And you're like, I think there's something in the back of your mind saying, at least give me the out in case this philosophy doesn't stack up over time. Don't fight that urge and that instinct of giving yourself a fallback or a failsafe of, I can still do snatches and cleans in the event that I think they are necessary or valuable, but I don't want to be limited by only having metal plates and Texas bars. And if you ever tried to done a hang clean with a Texas bar, you're going to be telling them, saying Olympic lifts don't work. Yeah. Equipment usage, it's the staff. It's maybe you have a bunch of staff are wearing Chuck Taylors and wearing knee sleeves and basically telling me Olympic lifts aren't good. I'm like, I'm going to associate your bias with the reason why you don't value them. And I jokingly tell people, those who can't power lift, at least they have the option to do other things. If you're a weightlifter, like a weightlifter can more easily do powerlifting things. It's not a bi-directional current. And it's the limiting yourself based off of your skill set or your knowledge, or just doubling down on a bias, is always dangerous. And it's always it's groupthink, it's echo chamber based, it's perpetuating an idea or a truth that you simply have created your whole identity around. That's so underserving to your athletes. And I'm not getting on a hill and saying you have to do weightlifting with your athletes. What I'm saying is you don't want to remove that from the equation if you don't have to. And if you think you can bring value for it, let's say that you do have 4 years with a kid and you can start them off with barbell warm up and doing the correct leg progressions from start to finish. And you see there's a translatable factor. And I'm also biased here too, because I used to do a backwards overhead med ball toss with all of my athletes. It's the only thing that was correlated to playing in the NFL by far. Like a sprint time, jump height, doesn't matter. If someone can throw 70 feet with the med ball, they're a first round NFL draft pick. Never seen that not be true. And that's my sample.
Yeah.
And the only thing that was directly correlated to that was a direct increase in their power snatch. So the kids who increased their power snatch were able to propel a med ball further. It is what it is. That's just from my sample I work with. And I could easily say it's only weightlifting. It's only that. And I could double down on that bias, and I could just get a bunch of squat stands and chalk trays and make everyone wear Adastar weightlifting shoes and have wooden platforms because they feel better than a rubber platform, and just all sorts of stuff. It could turn into looking like a Leico training hall. That would be wrong. That would be a huge underappreciation of all the value you could do to the athletes that I have, because I could easily have this string bean of a kid that would benefit from just doing traditional strength training exercises and just getting really strong and doing that factor. But the point of that being is we create this like momentum with our programming of the success or convenience or the limitations of my staff. Like I got a bunch of young staff. I can't hire like ready-made 6-figure guys who are going to bring really great contribution, are going to be flexible and malleable to anything I want to do in that moment. I have to pick a lane and stick to it and focus on being very simple and very good at those simple things. But the constraints that you put in your program might put a ceiling artificially on what you're trying to do. And I always like to probe in that direction. It's like, why would you just typecast yourself this early on? Like, I'm not an Olympic lifting guy. Okay, what does that mean? Or I'm this person. But it gets into my next question, and I think this is a good segue. on a program design standpoint, because you talked about the games aspect and contact prep. How much is that? You're getting a little bit of notoriety around it, which is great. And I think it's interesting. And I think it's definitely something that is grossly underserved, at least with football. And we go at it with white gloves and in a lot of ways, especially if you have guys who have NFL prospects in there, we pussyfoot around some certain things. And
yeah,
we do. And I would be the first to admit it. Like, I've been accused of being a helicopter coach and being risk averse, and guilty as charged.
I am the opposite. We had kids colliding today. I was like, oh God.
But
you know what? You got to get in there. You know what? Get your bumps now.
But with that being said, it's like when you're evaluating, let's say that you are doing GPS and you're doing IMA lefts and IMA rights, and you're saying, okay, what is the upper limit of this? And then let's say that you are doing some like plyometric count reps, and then you are doing Olympic lifts. Like, they're all impact on your body. Where does the contact prep or even the games, like the games get rough, like the games, and especially with big guys, like if you're doing with the 200-300 pound guys, they're going to make some physical contact. If you're doing a mirror drill and some other stuff like tag and running around cones, they're going to collide. How are you evaluating that and saying, okay, that's why I'm eliminating Olympic lifts, because I just can't pound these guys with a shitty catch or something where it's not really prepared to receive that load with all the other physical contact I'm going to be doing in my programming?
Yeah. So to wrap up your previous question, here's another example is I took over in 21. I've been banging the drum for GPS units for 4 years. It's very easy after year one of putting proposals together and getting nothing. After year two of just shutting it down and being like, okay, like we're still putting a program. We're still winning. We're still winning a lot of games. We're doing it without GPS. I think we were the only team in the conference without GPS. It's very easy for me to get complacent and say, I know my program is solid. I know it works. We make adjustments as we go. I don't need to learn about GPS because we're just not going to get it here.
You called the other guys in your conference GPS nerds?
Maybe. They might have some nerds on staff. I don't know.
Those nerds
I could say, hey,
Tucker,
I don't have anybody on staff. I could say, I don't have anybody on staff to help me handle this. We shouldn't even get, again, those limitations are self-imposed. So continue to push, continue to find, and when you get it, now it's okay, next step. So with all of our scores and stops things, you're right. There's a ton of hidden IMAs in there, of especially some hard cuts and like this is going to add up. So now I can finally validate what we've been doing with that for years now. It's been a couple of years of doing these games and things like that. And it's a feel thing. Okay, how did we respond to that? Was 3 stations of these drills too much? Can we handle 4? Now we can just go in there and look as well as objectively listen to the kids and say, hey, how you feeling? But it's funny, like a lot of those games and things like that, I've talked about this before, the impacts in those, for some reason, are a lot less strenuous the next day compared to maybe some pre-planned change of direction work or some your classic 5-10-5s. Something about having fun reduces soreness the next day. I don't know. And then when it comes to contact prep, people see
for that point though, the effort, and this has been proven through research, the effort and the bioenergetic impact is much greater in games than it is actually doing pre-programmed sprints and change direction work. Yep. That's statistically proven. VO2 max improves incredibly more rapidly if you're looking at it from a capacity standpoint, doing games for a period of time versus just programmed out sprints or change of direction work.
Yeah. And then with the contact prep stuff, people see that and they're like, oh, you're going to beat them up. They're going to be sore from that. We start everything pretty much engaged. And that's the biggest thing is we're not starting back here, stepping in and colliding. We're not going to have that impact. We are going to start engaging. It's more of the muscle strain aspect of things that we're looking for. Can you maintain these positions? Can you hold these? Our big guys, we used to push a lot of sleds. But the thing is, at the end of the day, the sled doesn't push back. Once you get that bad boy rolling, it gets pretty easy. You just got to run with it.
Yeah.
The 5-man, once you get the 5-man going, it's not bad as long as you can get it going. But another body pushes back into you. It's a whole different story. The strain factor of those things, that's why we do those, is for that aspect of conditioning as well, especially for our big guys, to limit the amount of running they were doing, because that's just one thing especially now looking at GPS to validate it, they don't run that much.
So last question.
It's not a triple option. We're not running triple out here. So.
Oh my goodness. So the world would be much better with more triple option in the world. I know it's a shitty existence for an offensive lineman, but the world's a better place for them.
I agree. We need more fullbacks.
I was lobbying so hard for the Nebraska turnover for Jeff Munkin to get that job. Like, we just need triple option back in Nebraska in the heartland. Like Oklahoma, Nebraska.
I think we solve a lot of problems in this country.
Oh God, yeah. Oh, Yeah, you're 100% right, man. And not to get political, but yeah, like I think everything we have right now is a product of our blue blood programs are not running triple.
Yep.
And the kids there, like salt of the earth, baling hay and doing manual labor, like there's more reason to do that if you know that you're going to play at your dream school running triple and just smashing
They'll
other.
probably go out and do more manual labor just to get
God,
ready.
yeah. Oh, I know. Just a weight room, just to pull a bunch of like just unconventional old timey strength stuff. And what a dream. All right.
That would, you walk in, you see that weight room, just pea barrels.
On the note of that, we're opening up a new location here in the fall, and we do have, I've been in communication with, I don't want to get out there. This is a, not plug, but I've reached out to
Season 8
Randall
reveal.
I reached out to Randall Strawson, and we want to create an Iron Mind lounge.
Wow. That would be awesome.
And he had a great response back, and it's been a good back and forth. We have an interior designer. She knows the assignment. It's going to be what it is. Like, I got on ChatGPT. I put a whole inspired Iron Mind lounge, and they did patent leather couches and like table. And I was like, add 5 captains of crushes on the coffee table. And yes, what level is that?
Whatever, it's just the one, but the door to get in is a 2 on the wall, and you have to close it, and then that's the only way the door will open. Okay. So you have to minimum probably set up a door handle that can handle maybe a 2 just to get in the room.
Yeah, but what my dream scenario here is I become an official Iron Mind judge. And the 3 big tests are the Silver Bullet Challenge, where you have to squeeze a 1 through 4 and hold on to it's like literally looks like a bullet.
Yep.
Then you have Crush to Dust, which is holding on to like the captain of crush, but holding on to the tether from the bottom of it. And then you have the single arm deadlift. I'd love to be at least the Northeast regional testing site for all Iron Mind stuff. And people can come by and go through their feats challenges, and it could be a registered coach or registered judge and getting on the Iron Mind website. That would be a dream.
When you become a judge, I'll come up there and I'll take on the tests.
I already got the call. So the first order I made was a Breville espresso maker. Are you a big coffee guy?
I'm not fancy, but yeah, coffee. I'll drink a ton of coffee.
Don't tell me. Yeah, what are you, like a Tim Hortons, whatever?
A Walmart cold brew, and I make it at home, and drinking maybe a gallon every 2 days.
Okay, we'll level that up here. You're not going to be able to do the Iron Mind cups.
I gave my wife an espresso for an anniversary gift.
Okay,
so every once in a while, she gives me a little.
Yeah, espresso pop. Yeah, that's good. And then you need your palate cleanser with some soda water to wash that down. Neither here nor there. Okay, so my last question here. How much of an impact do you think your program has on wins and losses?
I think a lot of strength coaches are humble and they say, oh, it's a very small impact. I think there's some impact in wins and losses here if you're doing things the right way. It's a synergy thing. If your department is not on the same page with everyone else, if you're not training in a way that's going to optimize performance and get them better, then you're not going to contribute to wins and losses. And ultimately, you're not going to have the wins because we're not all on the same page. It's the same as we have some great administrators here. We have a great athletic director here who supports the program, supports what we do. Because we have that support, we're able to get more kids on campus. We get more kids on campus. I'm allowed to train them. I'm allowed to train them better than when they're at home on their own. Again, systemic improvements here is when we're on the same page. So I do think there's benefits. When it comes to recruiting, there are kids that come here because they've been at other places and been ground up and spit out, and they want an opportunity to play, and they know that my selling point here is I'm going to help you go to another level, whatever that level may be. Is if you're a high school kid and you have dreams of transferring to Oregon or wherever else our kids have gone, we can help you get there. Physically, I can help develop you to a point where you're ready for that. You may not be a good football player, but physically, I can tell you what the numbers you need to achieve to move up to that level are, and I can help get you there. Or the same thing for guys who come down and say, hey, you haven't played. Is it a physical reason why you haven't played? I can help improve that gap and get you ready to play. And then our coaches can go out there and get you up to speed on that end. So I think when you're working together on the same page, yeah, I think what I do and the things in my department contribute to wins. I'm not afraid to say that. I think some coaches are for some reason, and they have a lot of humility and they don't think if it didn't matter, you wouldn't have a job. Granted, people were playing football long before strength conditioning, but I like to think what I'm doing is helping us out.
That's awesome, man. Thank you for that. All right. How can people find you, and what do you want them to find out what you're doing, and then any other cool projects or things you have coming up?
So social media, if you just type my name in, hopefully that pops up and I'm like the first person. So far, I haven't found too many other Scott Leaches out there. Okay. So you just find I forget what it is. I got to make them the same right now. There are a couple different things going on there. But Scott Leech, you'll find me. Social media is a place where I try and share as much information as possible. And just part of it is I want to show what our kids are doing on a daily basis because I want to hype our kids up and they do great stuff and I want them to see it. And then the other part too is I want to try and improve what I think is right in terms of college football and get some of the outdated ideas and things like that out of here and just share what I think is right. And so I'll do that on Twitter. I'll do that on Instagram. If you are somebody who's looking for some additional resources, I have it's called Gridiron Warrior 2.0. We got the updated version these days, but that's a 12-week summer program. And it's not just a program. I go over every single detail of every single part of the program. So from the speed work to the plyometrics, to the conditioning, to the contact prep, I'm going to go over every single drill. And it's really built for the high school coaches out there that are in charge of the weight room and they don't have a degree. They don't have a certification. They just got handed that responsibility and they want to do a good job. They know that, hey, I shouldn't be doing 10 by 10 back squat because every time that gets posted on Twitter, it gets roasted. So I'm not going to do that. But back in my day, all we did was gassers. So I don't know what to do with them for conditioning. I'm trying to answer that for them and say, hey, here's some ideas. Here's what you can do. Here's how you can make it a great experience for the kids. So there's that. And then if there's strength coaches out here that want more information, maybe about the contact prep stuff or how I fit the agility drills into what we do, I have separate courses just on those topics as well. And those are like deep dives into those two things, including progressions of you don't just start shoulder to shoulder, hip to hip, bumping into each other, right? There's a progression, there's a model for it. I lay all those things out in those courses. So it's all on my social media. Not hard to find.
Right there. I'll put that in the notes as well. But this is awesome, Scott. Really appreciate you taking the time. Some great insights, man. This was really fun. Thank you.
It was a blast. Appreciate you having me.
Awesome, brother.